Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Vampiric powers coming in Season 2 of Diablo 4. Now to do this, we're going to be using this max roll article written by Dead Scythe. Now this is a really well presented article that really makes it clear and easy to understand. I would highly encourage all of you to go check it out in the description down below. Now we're going to be covering everything from how to get Vampiric powers, how to use them, and which ones are the best. So with that, sit back, enjoy, and let's get right into the video. Alright, now as we get started here, let's talk about how you actually obtain Vampiric powers. Now, this is going to be pretty simple. They've made a new event that looks, as you can see, pretty much like a Helltide. Very similar here. Instead of being red, it is now kind of a bluish green. Now, what happens here? Basically, there's going to be kind of like a blood frenzy going on here with vampires, and you basically kill vampires and do challenges in this area. Now, on top of that, we also have the new seasonal progression system, which is very similar to Season 1's where we had, the quests that would kind of give us hearts along the way. We're going to be having that as well to unlock some hearts. Now, this is the new UI for the Vampiric powers, seeing that we can have 5 Vampiric powers slotted at a time. Now, this is where things get interesting, and this is not a set it and forget it system. You actually have to, be active in this system. Because as you see here, activation cost. So even when you unlock the Vampiric power and put it in your circle, it doesn't mean that it's working right away. You have to meet this activation cost, and these are called packs. Now, if we look at this here, we need 2, 2, and 2. Basically 2 across the board of these 3 different kinds of packs. Now, where do these packs come from? Now, if we look back on the website a little bit, look at this piece of armor. Look at it. Packs granted, 3 out of 5. So for instance, this item level 600 legendary gloves can have 5 packs on it. It has 3, but for instance, this could have 2, this could have 2, and this could have 1. Now again, take a look here. We need 2, 2, and 2. So say we only had 1 item with packs on it, this would not activate our Vampiric power. Now, don't be worried that it's just going to make gear farming harder, because there are ways to actually wipe these clean and put your own on it and adds more to gear crafting. Overall, I like this system. I like it that it's not just a set it and forget it type of system. I like it gives us something to do. Now, this could be cool because it's going to make each gear potentially more worth it or more unique depending on what it rolls with. Now, as you can see here, there are 3 types of packs: the Ferocity, Divinity, and Eternity, as seen here. Now, there's only 3, so this is just going to be a combination of these 3 to unlock our power. So as you can see, 2, 2, and 2. That's for this one. And of course, now we're going to go through all of the minor and major Vampiric powers in a second at the end of the video. Right now, we're just talking about how to actually unlock them and how to actually even use them. Now here we can see that not all armor is created equally. Regular world, so world tier 1 and 2 armor, can have 3 packs. Again, world tier 3, 4 packs, and then finally ancestral world tier 5, world tier 4, 5 packs. Now, this might be a little confusing because in previous seasons, if you were in World Tier 4, you would still be getting regular and sacred gear. But this is no longer the case. That is one of the changes that they made for Season 2, which honestly is a great change overall because we're just getting not as many bombardments of gear that is completely useless, but also it's going to really help with this getting useless packs. Eventually, once you get in World Tier 4, anything that doesn't have 5 packs is going to be useless. So this is a great change and overall really, really great. Now, next we can see here, this is actually how you're going to remove all the packs present and adds a pack of your choice. So here we have the Cleansed Acidol. Removes all packs present on a piece of armor, can be altered at the Alchemist to remove only specific packs. So this is super nice. Say you get, your piece of gear, and say it's, so this is a 5, so it's a 2, 2, 1. Basically, you need a 2, 1, 2. Okay, super easy. You use it and just remove this one and this one, because this one's already right. So, you leave your Ferocity, you remove Divinity and Eternity, and then you see here, Ferocity, Pact of Ferocity. Now, there'll be obviously 3 of these, each for the different kinds of packs. You can add them to it. So basically what's going to happen is you can remove the ones you don't want, add the ones you want, and eventually you can craft the perfect set of gear depending on what you need. Now, if you think about this, you'll need to do this several times because different world tiers, different total numbers of packs. Now, this is going to require some planning and some work, but overall, I do think it's a good system. I like that it adds a little bit of more crafting sense to it, and I like it overall. I think this will be interesting. I think it's fun, and I think it's different enough to really differentiate Season 2 from Season 1. All right, we're about ready to get into the minor and major Vampiric powers. Now, what does that mean, minor and major? So basically, it's the amount of packs required to activate the skill. For instance, minor packs might require 1 pact all the way to 3 packs to activate. So it could be a 1-1-1 or a 1-0-0. Basically, you know, it only needs 1 pact or you need 3 packs to activate it. Now, majors require 6, and it can be different combinations of any. It could be, you know, 6 in one and 0 in the other 2 categories, and vice versa. Now, keep in mind that in a full 600 World Tier 4 set, we only have 25 packs available. So we're going to have to mix and match to reach that 25. Now, with there only being 25 packs available at World Tier 4, that means we can't run solely majors. We're going to have to mix and match minors and majors, combining them together to make unique and new builds. Now, overall, like for say, we could put 4 majors, we'd be at 24 packs required, and then we could slot a 1 packed minor. That would give us our 25, and it would work well. But as you're going to see, there are certain synergies between the minors and majors, so I don't think we're going to see a lot of builds using, you know, 4 majors and 1 minor, and I think it's going to be more of a shuffle between the 2. Maybe, you know, 2 or 3 majors, and then the rest minors, really to synergize each and every one of them. Now let's dive into the minor vampiric powers, packs 1 through 3. Now looking here, we can see there's quite a few. So Anticipation, this is a 1 pact, and it is 1 divinity. Your ultimate skills gain 20% cooldown reduction. Your ultimate skills gain 12% increased damage for each nearby enemy affected by your damage over time effects. Now this one I'm really excited for, because I'm going to be playing Sorceress in the next season. Now Sorceress, especially Chain Lightning, has a really strong ultimate that has a long cooldown, meaning with this, we're going to get that cooldown faster, it's going to do more damage, and we already do a bunch of damage over time effects. So overall, I think a lot of these are honestly really, really fun. You can definitely see that some of them are steered towards certain characters and certain builds. This one does synergize with quite a few, as several builds in the game use ultimates, but overall this one I really like for Sorcerer. Now Coven's Fangs, this is a 2 pact. Your Conjuration, Companion, Minion, and Bat Familiar attacks deal 52% increased damage to crowd-controlled enemies. Now this one, there's going to be some of these that, you know, definitely could be used in the game, but overall, they're kind of going to be eh. This one has potential, depending on how crowd control builds are doing. Like for instance, a minion CC build could definitely benefit from this. Again, it could be quite strong, 52%. And now again, I'm assuming all of these are multiplicative. If these are not multiplicative, they're kind of pointless. They won't do anything. So we're assuming these are all multiplicative. They haven't specifically specified, but for them to do really any meaningful uses in the game, they have to be. So 52% multiplicatively for a minion CC build would be quite strong. So again, we're just going to have to see how certain builds are actually viable in the certain game, like CC. So this one's kind of a maybe. It could be really strong. It might not be. We'll have to see when the game actually comes out. Now, next we have Domination. This is a 1 pact and is Ferocity. You deal 24% increased damage to enemies who are stunned, immobilized, frozen, or feared. If they're also injured and not an elite, they're instantly killed. Now, this part is a little interesting. I'm not sure how this is quite going to interact with the game. So if they're also injured and not an elite, they're instantly killed. So this could be really good for farming, or it could just not work. We'll have to see. I have doubts about stuff like this, the instant kill stuff. I don't think it's going to be that useful overall, because really minions are what you're elites are what you're farming for XP. So I don't really know how this is going to be. Also, like stunned, okay. Lightning Sorcerer, we do a lot of stunning. Immobilized, like, yeah, there's a few. Frozen, so like a Frost Door build, stuff like that. So this has potential, but we'll see how it does actually in the patch. Definitely for a 1 pact, I think it could be pretty strong. We'll have to see how it plays out with the builds though. Feed the Coven, 1 Eternity, also a 1 pact. Lucky Hit. Conjuration, Companion, Minion, and Bat Familiar attacks have up to a 60% chance to restore 10 primary resource to you and increase your damage by 10% for 4 seconds. This one's a little bit interesting. So, you know, for classes that struggle with, you know, primary resource, this could definitely be useful. For instance, like minions, you don't really struggle with primary resource ever. But for other builds in the game, I guess you could. I don't think this one's going to be too useful, but overall, you know, we'll just have to see in the game. I'm sure somebody will find a crazy, wacky build for it, and I think it'll be fun. Overall, I do love the fact of how many actual new stuff is in the game, it definitely is going to add a lot of variety to our builds. Hectic, this is a 3 divinity, so a big one. For every 5 basic skills you cast, one of your active cooldowns is reduced by 2 seconds. Now this one is definitely useful because cooldowns are extremely important, but for 3 packs, I don't know if the trade-off is worth it because 3 packs is a lot for a minor and for only 2 seconds. This one, if your build definitely uses basic skills and you're spamming basic skills, this could potentially be good. But if you're not spamming basic skills, it's useless. And it's still really expensive even if you are spamming basic skills. Because I think we're 25 max, and this takes up 3 for a minor ability, not a major. So this one is a little interesting. I think it's a little bit on the expensive side, but it could theoretically be really strong if you're using a basic skill spam build. None of the builds that I've seen and I'm predicting to be strong in Season 2 are basic skill spam builds, but it could be potentially good. We'll just have to wait and see. I do think it's a little bit pricey for the added benefits that it brings. Hemamancy, 3 Eternity, again a big one. Your attacks deal 80% of your maximum life as physical damage to nearby enemies. This can occur once every 4 seconds. You heal for 1% of your maximum life for each enemy damaged this way. This one is one of the ones where I think we're just going to have to wait and see. We're going to have to see actually how this interacts with the mobs and stuff in the game to see how it's going to be useful. Because could this be strong? Absolutely. You might be able to do some crazy wacky stuff with this to pull off huge damage, but it's just kind of a wait and see game with some of these skills because we're not quite sure how they're going to interact with things. And I'm not sure how they're going to react in the sense that, it might say what it does here, but in a lot of ways, we have no idea what they're actually going to do because a lot of the stuff that is posted by Blizzard is wrong. Don't mean that in a bad way, but it definitely can be skewed. And it can be kind of hard to really understand how these are going to work until actually seeing them in action. Infection, 1 ferocity. Hitting enemies with direct damage inflicts them with pox. Inflicting pox 8 times on an enemy impugns their infection, dealing 70% poison damage. Now, this could be really cool. If you're running a poison build, so your poison damage is already incredibly strong, maybe even have some multipliers on poison damage, this could be really strong, especially, for bigger health targets. I'm thinking bosses, I'm thinking elites, because as we see here, we have nothing saying that this doesn't work on bosses, named bosses, or elites. And so I think this could potentially be really strong. Potentially. We'll just have to see how it interacts with bosses. This, I don't think, is going to do anything for small ads or trash, basically, and only going to be useful when you're fighting big bosses. Jagged Spikes, 1 ferocity, 1 divinity. Thorns have a 10% chance to deal 300% increased damage and chill enemies for 8%. Now, this is interesting because right now, the characters that use Thorn builds don't do any chill. So I don't know if they're trying to hint at us that we should be using Thorns on something that can chill like a Sorceress, which is an interesting concept, but I'd be down to give it a try. I mean, overall, Thorns has definitely a spot in the game right now. It's not the strongest, but it's not the weakest. And it seems like it'd just be a straight buff to Thorns. And the chill is interesting. I'm not sure how that'll work, but it could be something cool to try. I don't think this is going to be a meta pick, but something to play around with, have fun with. Prey on the Weak, 2 ferocity. You deal 16% increased damage to vulnerable enemies. Enemies are vulnerable while infected by a vampiric curse from your other vampiric powers. This is interesting because they did make a lot of changes to vulnerable and crit. And this kind of helps bring back the nerfs to vulnerability and crit. And it might make certain builds that relied on that better after the nerf. So this one could be a meta pick for some builds. Some builds that aren't going to be as viable this season because of the nerfs. This could help bring them back out of the grave. And I could definitely see this in a lot of places on a lot of builds. This one is definitely one to keep an eye on. And, make sure you can try to get this one early. Because I think this one might be a pretty big deal, especially early on. And even as we get into, speedrunning and medic builds. Rampart, this is another 2-pack, 1 divinity, 1 eternity. After not moving for 3 seconds, you gain a barrier of 40% of your maximum life for 6 seconds. This can occur every 20 seconds. I'm not a fan. not necessarily bad, but it's not really good. I like to move fast, run around, clear things fast, and I don't like to stand still. So it's not one for me. I'm sure somebody could make a cool build out of it, but not a fan for me. Glad it's in the game, but overall, I'm not going to be using it. Ravenous. This is a 3-packed. Lucky hit, up to a 20% chance to increase your attack speed by 40% of your total movement speed for 6 seconds. This is interesting. So let's read this again. 20% chance to increase your attack speed by 40% of your movement speed. So if you're on a build with high movement speed, so I'm already thinking rogue, and then you have a chance to increase your attack speed by 20%, that could be interesting. You know, this one could potentially make it into a few builds. We'll have to see if it's strong enough to be basically affordable, seeing as it is a 3-packed. I don't know how this one's going to play out. This one could be interesting. I have a few ideas of how this might be able to be used, and I'm curious about this one. Right? A lot of these 3-packed miners, I'm a little hesitant on because it's very, very expensive, and they don't seem to be that much stronger than the 2 or 1-packs. So we'll just have to wait and see on that one. That one's got me questioning it. Resilience to Eternity. You gain 1% damage reduction for each 2% life that you are missing. This looks like something you'd slot if you're trying to run, higher up in Nightmare Dungeons and you're dying a lot. A simple one to give you a little bit more damage reduction and keep you alive longer. It's not going to make your build crazy. It's not going to make anything broken. And it's just really there to help you if you're struggling. Sanguine Embrace. When you kill an enemy, fortify for 6% of your base life. While you have more fortify than half of your maximum life, you gain 8% critical strike chance. Now, this is another interesting one because not only is it making us tankier, and it is giving us crit strike chance. Now, crits were nerfed, but this, again, is probably going to be one of the things used to help overcome the nerf and bring some of those builds back, especially our crazy, crazy strong builds. And I think this one could be really useful because it really twofold. So you get fortify, really, really nice. When you kill an enemy, that's pretty common. Unless you're fighting a boss, this is going to be pretty much useless. But if you're just running through Nightmare Dungeons or trying to clear T100s, this is probably pretty good. Fortify for 6%. And when you're fortifying for more than your maximum life, you gain, 8% critical strike chance. I think this is pretty good because you think this is going to stack up fast. You kill an enemy, you gain 6. So pretty soon you're going to be over 50, and then you're going to be getting that critical strike chance and doing more damage, killing him faster, getting more fortify. I really think once you get rolling, this could be pretty strong, and I think will be used in quite a few builds. Terror. 1 Ferocity, 1 Divinity, and 1 Eternity. When struck, you have a 14% chance to fear nearby enemies and slow them by 80% for 2 seconds. You are guaranteed to critically strike enemies who are feared. This one could definitely be worth using. So 14% chance, that's pretty high, to fear enemies and slow them by 80%. Now that is a lot of slow. And for 2 seconds, that's a pretty long time. That's a pretty long soft CC, and you're guaranteed to crit strike them. Now the guaranteed crit strike is where this could be extremely strong, as they did nerf crits, but if we're able to still build crazy crit builds like we were in the season 1, this could be huge, basically guaranteeing a huge crit on anyone that was feared. And at a 14% chance, on a boss fight, you're definitely going to fear them at least a few times, and boom, massive crits. I think this one definitely could be useful. I think this is probably the most powerful 3-packed from the miners. Now finally, Undying. This is a 1-packed. Casting skills heal you for 3% life. Double this bonus while below 50% health. I mean, this is, again, casting skills. So this could be useful, if you're dying a lot, you're struggling, especially on something like Sorceress, could be useful. Not going to make you do any more damage or kill any faster, but definitely could be useful in that sense. All right, let's get into these major vampiric powers. Starting out with Accursed Touch, 6 Divinity, Lucky Hit, up to a 44% chance to inflict Vampiric Curse on enemies. Enemies with Vampiric Curse have a 15% chance to spread it around to other enemies. Accursed Souls deal 200% increased damage. Now, Vampiric Curse, you're probably thinking, what is this? What is this Vampiric Curse right here? Well, Vampiric Curse is a general ability that you'll gain when you do your new class quest for the season. And it's going to be something that you can, trigger. It's going to be a new ability. And from my understanding, each class has a different Vampiric Curse. So when basically you're going to be, able to trigger the Vampiric Curse through an ability that you'll unlock. So enemies with Vampiric Curse have a 15% chance to spread it to surrounding enemies. I really like this one. This one is cool. Now, of course, this is a 6-pack, so it's a big one. And I think it's cool. I kind of think of like a poison spreading build. Like this, that's just what pops into my mind. I think it's really cool. I like the idea of it, and I'm definitely going to be trying it out. I mean, we'll see how strong it is, how strong the Vampiric Curse is, and whether it's worth spreading. And, you know, the Accursed Souls doing 200% increased damage multiplicatively could be absolutely massive. So I think this is really cool, especially for like Nightmare Dungeons and places where there are lots of enemies, spreading it and spreading it and spreading it. I think it's pretty cool. Bathe in Blood. While channeling a skill, you form a pool of blood beneath you. While channeling a skill in a pool, your channeled skills deal 40% increased damage, and you gain 30% damage reduction. A pool can form once every 8 seconds. Instantly, what comes to mind is bossing. I think this will be incredibly powerful when doing bossing, as that's when you're going to be standing still the most. Especially channeling, you know, something like Sorceress or something like that, I think could be really, really strong here. And I think we're going to see this more in bossing than anything else. Blood Boil. When your core skill overpowers an enemy, you spawn 3 volatile blood drops. Collecting a volatile blood drop causes it to explode, dealing 60% physical damage around you. Every 20 seconds, your next skill is guaranteed to overpower. So for overpowered builds, this sounds pretty cool. Now, I don't play a lot of overpowered builds, but I know a Druid build that is pretty strong with overpowered, and I think this could be useful in that build. We'll just have to see, you know, maybe overpower is the way to go this season. We don't really know yet because we don't have hands-on experience. We just have the patch notes, and so we can make educated guesses, but really until we get our hands on it, we're not going to know the full story. Call Familiar. Casting a Mastery, Weapon Mastery, Macabre, Wrath, or Imbuement skill calls a bat ally to attack nearby enemies, dealing 80% physical damage with a 30% chance to stun. This could be pretty cool. You could basically summon a huge pack of bats to go stun and deal a ton of physical damage. And if your physical damage is buffed and really strong, this could be pretty strong skill. Overall, I don't think it's going to be super useful on a character like, you know, Sorceresses or Necros, but overall we'll just have to see. Flowing Veins. You deal 60% increased damage over time to enemies that are moving or affected by a Vampiric Curse. This, I think, could be very, very strong for Necromancers, as they can do a ton of damage over time, and especially ramping that damage over time. Again, maybe on some Barbarian builds, I think this could be really, really strong and definitely going to be used in a lot of them. Metamorphosis. When you evade, you turn into a cloud of bats, becoming unstoppable for 4 seconds. This is really cool. I think this is going to be really useful for basically the Infinimist build. Definitely going to be needed for that on the Necromancer. So enemies along your path take 160% increased physical damage and are inflicted with Vampiric Curse. Now, I think this is pretty cool. Overall, you know, I would like to see, so enemies with Vampiric Curse can spread. So technically, you could use these two together to buff your Vampiric Curse, go into this to inflict it, spread it, and then I think this could be really cool. You can kind of see how we can pair these up and do stuff with them. I think this is really cool. I'm super excited for this season if you can't tell. But I think this one could be pretty strong, especially for like a Necromancer with Infinimist. I think it's going to be really cool. Moonrise. Hitting an enemy with basic skill grants you 4% increased attack speed for 10 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Upon reaching maximum stacks, you enter Vampiric Blood Rage, gaining 160% basic skill damage and 15% movement speed for 10 seconds. Okay, let's take a minute to go through this. So 160% basic skill damage. So, you know, if you have a really strong basic skill that you're spamming, this could be absolutely massive. Again, multiplicative numbers here. 160% multiplicatively, that's a lot. That's a lot of damage. So I think this could be really strong. I mean, overall, the major vampiric powers here, I think all of these are incredibly strong and are going to be used, you know, pretty much in a lot of different builds. And I also think all of them have a place in pretty strong builds, and we're going to be having a lot of mixing and matching and customization thanks to the minor powers required to fill in the gaps. Overall, I'm pretty happy with what we know so far. I really like the vampiric power system, and I'm excited to get my hands on it. Now, thank you everybody for watching. I know this has been a longer video than my usual, and get ready to have a ton more uploads from me for Diablo 4 Season 2. So with that, thank you everybody for watching. I hope to see you guys in a future video. Peace out, and I'll see you next time.